Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Game Develop Repeat. I am your host, Chris, and in today's episode, we're not talking about one specific game. We're not even talking about a collection of games. No, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the idea of touching grass, the idea of getting out into the real world. In fact, not just the idea, we're going to talk about the reality of getting out into the real world and spending some time away from the computer, away from the development environment, away from the games that we love so much. And how is it that touching grass, going outside, enjoying the real world can make us enjoy games more and help us to develop better games? I want to start this episode by talking about some experiences I had in nature as a child, because I think that this will put a fine point on why I want to talk about this topic and will pretty thoroughly explain some of my thoughts on it. So when I was a kid, I would play a lot of games and I would spend a good amount of time sitting in the woods outside my house. I would go out there and I would sit under this big tree and I would kind of sit in the roots and I'd be sitting over this little, nowadays I'd probably call it a puddle, but to me it was a pond. It's just a part of a stream where it pooled a little bit. I would sit, I would hang out there. Sometimes I'd go there with friends. Sometimes I would just sit there on my own. If something was bothering me, I would just go out there and I would just sit. I would sit near the water under a tree. And I find myself still to this day having the urge when something is like a mess to just go like find a body of water and sit near it, or go to some trees and just walk around under some trees, right? But when I was a kid, I was thinking about this one day. I was like, I spend a lot of time playing games, and I really like spending time in nature, but I don't spend that much time in games. And I was or I don't spend as much time in nature as I do in games. And I was trying to explain this to myself. I was trying to figure it out. And I remember saying, maybe in my head, I think I said it to my dad. I remember trying to express this thought at some point. And the way I expressed it was, I really enjoy being in nature, but I enjoy gaming more. And if I had to rephrase that, now that I have a better understanding of my own internal state and a better ability to communicate certain things, hopefully, I would say I really enjoy being in nature. It helps me connect with myself. It helps me understand the world around me and how I'm interacting with it. It gives me space to think. But I find games more compelling. And I think some of you will know what I'm talking about. Sometimes a game is begging for your attention. A game is like, give me your attention. Come here, come play, come have fun. And nature is just sitting there. Nature is just chilling. It's just like, yeah, if you need me, I'm here. Come back around when you want to. Maybe it's something else in your life that you get deep satisfaction of. Maybe it's the act of creating versus playing, right? There are all of these different feelings, and games will compel you to play them. Nature will not compel you to spend time in it unless you get this. Sometimes you get this feeling. Sometimes you get this deep feeling of just like, I need to go outside. I need to get away from screens. I need silence. I need something, but I have to get away from this. Right? Everybody has that experience at some point or another, I believe, of I just need to step away from these things. I need to process. I need a moment to connect with myself, to reconnect with myself, and not just constantly be taking on more and more input and other people's stuff and my own thoughts and all of this, right? And it just goes wild. And this is where it relates to gaming, because it might seem odd that I'm covering this topic. It is hard to enjoy a video game when you are fully out of touch with yourself and your environment. And I know this from experience. It's not hard to play a video game when you're fully out of touch with yourself, right? there are games that will still compel you, still invite you, still pull you in when you are completely out of touch with yourself. You don't even know what you're feeling. You don't even know if you enjoy the game, and you're still playing the game. This is a thing that happens. There have been phases in my life, and pardon me for the slight overshare, but there have been phases in my life where I fully just go into the game. I'm just like, I'm gaming, it's fun. I'm gaming, it's fun. I'm gaming, it's fun. And the day ends, and I'm like, I didn't have any fun today, and I feel terrible. But I was gaming, and it was fun, right? But it wasn't. And this is where things get interesting for me in terms of, we'll get into the game design element of this in a bit, but I do think that it's important for developers to think about this when they design a game, because we are trying to create enjoyable experiences. Are you trying to create an enjoyable experience, or are you just trying to get money? The motivation behind the game affects the way that the game affects the player, right? It's all connected. It's all one big chain. But anyway, in terms of actually gaming, when I select for games these days, it seems to me that I usually select for a game that is a experience that has a beginning and an end and is not excessively long, right? I like to have a good short game experience with a narrative that I get to digest, and then I finish it and I go, ooh, nice, wonderful. And you can sit with it for a minute. I like that. I've been thinking about something else, which is this podcast, to some extent, is me digesting a ton of games that I never digested when I played them. I played these games. I did not take a break. I was going and going and going relentlessly for a good period of my life. Like a good long while. We don't need to get into all the details of it, but I was just playing games. Right now, I'm probably playing games the least I've played since college. There was a phase in college when I just didn't game at all. But lately, I play while I'm on stream. That's my gaming time. I think I put in an additional hour at one point this past week, but basically, I game for 6 hours total on stream every week, and that's it. I used to game a lot more than that. So I think sometimes this podcast is just me going through and going, oh, what did I think of that game? I never did take a moment to digest it, But I think in terms of enjoying games, you finish a game, give it a little space to breathe, If you finish it and then you jump directly into another game, it's a lot. It's like watching movies one after the other, but the movies are 40 hours long. It's intense. You've just been through this whole emotional journey, and if it was an excellent game that really brings you through an experience, right? If you're talking about a Celeste, if you're talking about, I'm playing Hollow Knight right now, good God. If we're talking about a Hollow Knight, a Celeste, a Darkest Dungeon even, although that game has a lot more replayability, something that's very deeply compelling, and then we just go straight to another thing, it's like, whoa, buddy, that's intense. That's like going straight from breakfast to lunch to dinner, 1 hour to the next. It's you got to give yourself time to digest, right? That's how I feel about this. So those moments when we finish a game, then you spend time in the real world. You touch grass, and it gives you a chance to enjoy the next game. And for anybody who's going through this cycle of game after game after game after game, just give it a little bit of time. Give it a couple days and then go to the next game, and you're going to enjoy it more, I think, And maybe this isn't that relatable for everybody, but I suspect that most of us have had some phase with something in our life where we're just going one after the other, right? And not taking the time to enjoy it. And it's a shame when that happens with gaming, because I think it's really easy for that to happen with gaming. Especially now with the way that things are designed, it's so easy to just keep gaming. So many games beg you to just keep gaming, and they're all competing for your attention. And it's a shame, because there are games out there that really want you to experience them and then relate them to your life, I don't think we're making games that exist in a vacuum. I don't think we're making games just to be fun. I think there are games that are like that, but even that you can relate to your real life. Like, you play a game that's just fun and it inspires you to have a new way to play with your children or your nieces or nephews or friends if you're quite young. It might inspire you to go, ooh, maybe that mechanic, that's interesting. Maybe I can make some kind of a little game with my family based on that. Like, maybe I can joke around with this thing. Like, it's supposed to connect back to reality. It's not supposed to exist in a vacuum. And it's okay if that happens for a period of time. I choose to believe that because it happened to me for a very long period of time where it was just all games, all games all the time, baby. It happens. Go in no life mode, right? It's a thing. I don't think it's necessarily great. And now is the right time, I think, to start talking about the game development side of things. What motivates game design? How does game design connect to touching grass? So when we develop a video game, there are a lot of different things that might be driving that development, right? There are a lot of different things that might be your incentive for making a game. And I think that it's important to pay attention to those incentives, and how those incentives affect the game design. So there are some games that are clearly attempting to communicate some sort of emotional message. I think this is extremely common in indie games. There are other games that are just trying to be a fun collection of mechanics that you enjoy interacting with, that you can goof off with, that you can experiment with and sandbox with and what have you. And there are some games that are very clearly trying to get you to give them money as regularly as possible, And I take issue with the way that last incentive interacts with game design. I think that games as a live service inherently have a negative impact on game design purely just for the fact that they're incentivized to make the player not take time to digest, because the more the player plays the game, the more money the developer can make off of it, or at least that's kind of the apparent pattern. So the problem with this is you need time to digest the game in order to enjoy the game. And I think some of the games that we see be very successful that are more live servicey give players a little bit of space, give them a little time to pause and step away and then come back around. But there is this thing of, there's an incentive for games that are subscriptions, for games that are constant microtransactions with new releases every patch and all this stuff. There's this incentive to just keep playing and keep up and earn this currency and do this and do this. It becomes chores. It becomes a job. And it's, some of those games are really fun. They're still fun. I'm not saying they can't be fun, but I do think that there's an issue of incentive. And I think being aware of that issue is a powerful tool. I would prefer to not have to deal with that issue whatsoever. I would rather just craft an experience and sell it for a set amount of money and be done with it. I understand why companies would want a consistent revenue stream within the games industry, and I think that it's inevitable that some people are going to do that and going to continue pursuing that, and it makes sense from a logistical perspective. But I'm a little obsessed with the indie side of things. I love a game that gives you this journey and then says, hey, give it a minute. Enjoy this. Sit with this. You've just had feelings. How do you feel about those feelings? Take it in. Soak it up a little bit. And I think that as developers, it's really important to look at not just, is my game profitable, right? Not just, is my game going to make me money? Is my game going to do this, that, or the other? But the real deep underlying incentive of making a game is this gonna be an enjoyable game? Whatever that looks like for your game, is my player going to have an emotional experience that they can tie into their own life and develop a better understanding of themselves through playing this game on some level? Is it going to help them relate to other people? Is it going to show them just a fun experience? Is it going to be a nice break from the world? Is it just going to be like, oh, hey, you can hop in for 30 minutes after work and just kind of relieve some tension and then go back to the world and that's fine? Or if you hop in for 30 minutes after work, are you going to get sucked into this game and not be able to leave it for the rest of the night? You're going to go to bed late. You're going to go to work and have a miserable... Like, what did you design this game for? Is it too much of a hook? Because here's the other angle, and I think I heard this from Healthy Gamer GG thing, from Dr. Alok Kanoja. I think he had said something about trying to convince people that it's not good to hook your gamers. It's not good to hook your players into the game so aggressively. Because if the players aren't being successful in reality, they're not going to be able to pay for your game, man. So don't give them a crippling addiction to your game. Don't design a game that makes people constantly pour all their money into it, because then they're going to have to quit the game too. And don't do this thing of like, oh, well, I've got to find the perfect line, the perfect balance of exactly how much money I can get out of it. No, make a game that makes the world a better place. And I don't mean that in the stupid, preachy way. I don't mean make a game that has this powerful message that's going to... No, make a game that's a good expression of something that people are going to enjoy and then be done with, you know? Or if it's competitive, they're going to enjoy and they're going to keep working on these skills and they're going to build confidence over whatever, right? Like, you don't have to dive into your player's psychology and all this stuff, but make sure that there's some value, because this is something I struggle with sometimes. I think if I'm making games, what is the value there? I'm not a firefighter. I'm not a doctor. I'm not whatever. What's the value in making games? And they go, well, I mean, a lot. What value have games given me? I'm like, is this an unethical profession? I don't think so. I think there are ways to do it unethically, but I think that creating games is crafting experiences that other people can connect with, and sometimes it's going to be something where somebody goes into gaming to give them space to recover from some horrific thing that happened in their life, and they're going to run away into games for a little bit. Sometimes people need that space, right? Or sometimes it's going to be something where it's a game that people play with their kids and have a fun time and have a bonding experience with. Maybe it's just a hard day at work, play a game for a little bit. Maybe it's play a game, start thinking about your life, start moving in a different direction because this piece of art had a heavy impact on you. I don't want it to be play a game over and over and over for the rest of your life. I want this to be a good experience that you had, the end. And then maybe later I make another one. And maybe you come back and enjoy it again. We already get so much time out of the games we play. We already get more than a movie out of every game that we buy, typically, not always. But we always get so much time and enjoyment out of these games. Why do they need to be played infinitely? They don't need to. I don't want them to be played infinitely. I want games that I can play and then I can go out into the world and I can enjoy the fact that I played that game. I want to make games that are like that. And I'm so glad that I chose to do this episode because it's really clarifying for me what it is that I want to make and how it is that I want it to affect other people on a very fundamental level, right? There's still all the specific details like the genre and the vibe and the aesthetic and all of this stuff. But on a fundamental level, I want to make experiences that you finish and relate back to reality. You know what I mean? I want them to make you think a little bit. I want you to have to connect with yourself after you finish something that I made. And that's a big goal. And it's not going to land for everybody who plays the game. But if I make a game and it lands for like 10 people, that's huge. That's massive, you know? And then everybody else puts like 1 hour into it. Yeah, it was kind of good. It's not for me. Okay, cool, great. But if 10 of the people who played it are like, oh my God, this game had such an impact, blah, 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 blah. Like the way I am about half the games I've played. If there's like 10 people that are like that, then amazing. Absolutely amazing. All right, I've got a couple questions for you this week, and then we're all done until next week. First question: what games have you thought about during real life, like in connection to real life? As always, I'll answer my own questions. Stardew Valley. It's always Stardew Valley. I've thought about Stardew Valley while doing like yard work, basically. And I was like, ooh, this is fun. I've thought about Celeste. I've thought about, competitive games. When like trying to develop skills, I've thought about how did I get better at this game that I played? How did I improve at this? I've thought about chess. Whenever I'm feeling a bit overconfident, I'm like, wait a minute, chess. Whenever I'm overconfident in that game, I get wrecked. So maybe that's a lesson to learn right now. And the next question is, how has real life made gaming more fun for you? And I would say the core way for me is everything I just talked about. It gives me time to digest. And then the emotional experiences that I have in gaming hit so much harder when I have major emotional experiences from my real life to relate them to. And then I enjoy the game so much more, right? By having something in reality that it connects to, it creates this deep feeling of like, I can feel that. I understand what this character is going through. Oh my God. Right? So that's a huge one for me. And then the tip for myself this week, and it might be a tip for you, I don't know, but for me, it's to touch grass as often as reasonably possible. I've been going on a lot of walks lately, maybe a little too much, in fact, but I do think that taking that time away to just digest everything going on in life, not just in games, is marvelous, and it's really freeing and comforting. That is everything that I have for you all this week. If you would like, you can join the Discord. There's a link in the description. It should be working. I made a couple changes to the Discord. If it's not working, please let me know. Contact me at anxiousbuddhagames@gmail.com. Also, just feel free to email me, anxiousbuddhagames@gmail.com. We've got the Discord. We've got the podcast, which you're listening to now. I also have a Twitch stream that I do every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 3 hours of game dev and being distracted, and then 2 hours of gaming. All right. That's that. Have a good week. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next one. Wait, what do I always say? Oh my God, I have like a phrase. I always say this phrase. Get out there, make some stuff, and have fun with it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.